that you're going to be able to do new learning and sort of get something different out of a placement in your workplace than you would in your day-to-day work. So it's got to be clearly identifiable as a placement, doing something different to what you would normally do. But one of the questions people always have is, can you do a placement where I work? Can I do a placement where I work, John? And yes, you can do a placement where you work. Another common question is, can I do placement in private practice? Yes, you can. And these two things are a source of hot debate, both within our course and between courses as well. Many courses don't allow people to do placements where they work, or do allow people to do placements where they work, but not in private practice. Some higher education providers allow both, some higher education providers allow neither. So we do allow placements in workplaces and we do allow private practice placements, but we almost always only allow one private practice placement. And that's part of our sort of needing to ensure that the training complies with APAC standards and criterion around diversity of experience. The other thing we do is we organise all of your supervision for you. So we provide supervisors, we provide 50% individual supervision and 50% group supervision. That's all baked into the fees. We organise that for you, but you find your placements. And again, that's something that is sometimes a source of debate in our course, sometimes a source of debate between courses. What we've found is, as a national course, for people that are registered psychologists and have spent many years gaining that experience and developing professional networks, you are much better at sourcing placements than we would be for you. And that's part of what's allowed us to scale up to the size that we are. We do help where we can. We help you craft placements with existing workplaces. We do every year have a number of providers that approach us and offer placements, and we offer those to all students as expressions of interest. But the emphasis is definitely on people sourcing their own placements and then us providing supervision. Thanks, Muriel. Given where we are in the year, I think a lot of the questions that people have and the things I can sort of help with right now are around the selection process. So again, this is something that we've experimented with over the last 5 years, and where we are at the moment with it is, I guess, a two-step process. So applications are open now. Applications opened at the beginning of July and they're open till end of November. But we make rolling offers, right? So bear that in mind. We've got a finite number of places that we offer. Applications are open and we're already making offers. So waiting till the end of November, as most of us do, when you know a closing date, could be a mistake, because in this example, we're already making offers on our course. And what happens is you complete an application form online and send in and attach some other documents, transcripts, CVs, things like that. And those get scrutinised, and we sort of scrutinise them at set points. So rather than every day going into the system and looking at applications, we sort of pick a date and then look at all the applications we've got up to that date and then shortlist a group of people. And if you get shortlisted, what happens is you hear from us saying, congratulations, you've been shortlisted, and you get enrolled into a Moodle course. So Moodle is a learning management system some of you would have come across, that talks you through the exam. And the exam, you would always get sort of 2, 3, sometimes 4 weeks, definitely minimum of 2, often 3 to 4 weeks of notice that you've got to do the exam. And the Moodle course provides example questions, help around different styles of question, and puts you all in touch with each other so you can ask one another questions as well. It's a 90-minute exam. For those of you that have done the National Psychology exam, it's pretty similar with an extra research domain, really. So it's 25 questions, you get 90 minutes to do it. A lot of people do it a lot quicker than that, I noticed in the last exam. So It's not something that I don't believe it's too challenging. It's not there to trip you up. It's there because APAC ask us to confirm that everybody who's doing a level 4 course meets the level 3 APAC standards. And so it's one of the ways that we confirm that people meet the APAC level 3 standards. The other thing you do alongside it is a very brief video, which you can just do on any device. You upload it to YouTube, make it private, send us a link, and we have a watch of the video. There aren't any interviews, which is usually a relief for people. The video replaces the interview, really. And so once you, as I said, once you get your notification and you're sort of enrolled in Moodle for the exam all happens on one day. We run it 4 or 5 times a year, and that's normally the day you have to submit your video as well. As I said, you have 90 minutes. It covers 4 or 5 different areas: professional communication, ethics, research, intervention, assessment, I think are probably the 5 areas. And so we look at your exam, we look at your video, and then from there we start making offers. You'll also see that there are referee reports that you've got to put in. They're via a separate system, so that's through the Psychology Reference Portal. There's information about that on the website, and also information on the Moodle site as well if you get shortlisted. But they're something that sort of happen independently of us. You pay $40, something like that. You register with the system, you say which courses you want to submit referees to, referee reports to, you pick some referees, and as sort of magic happens in the background, and we can then see the referee reports once that's completed. And so we then consider all that information together: the exam, the video, the application form, and your referee reports. And as I said, we make offers as we go. So please think about that when you're thinking about when you're going to apply. Next slide, I think, Marielle. It's a pretty conventional structure that we've got. It's fairly simple. It's a part-time only course. We did, when we very first ran the course, offer a full-time option, and literally every single student went part-time. And that's no real surprise, really, because you're all working as registered psychologists, and full-time study is rarely an option for people that have, got responsibilities, got kids, got mortgages, and so forth. So after a while, we withdrew the full-time option, and we're a part-time only option. And the conventional structure, which I would think 85–90% of people stick to. Things do happen. People get pregnant. That would be a big one. Other things happen in people's lives, and so sometimes trajectories through the course change. But pretty much most people manage to make it through this structure. So in the first semester, you do a couple of units, a kind of more introductory unit around clinical psychology theory and practice, and an adult psychopathology and intervention unit. And then in the second semester, you do an advanced clinical assessment unit, and a child psychopathology and intervention unit. And that sort of concludes, by the end of that, you've got to the end of your first year, and that kind of concludes the major pieces of coursework, really. And then in the second year, so for you guys, what would be 2027, you do a placement in each semester, and those are sort of 1.5 unit sizes of the coursework unit. So instead of 12.5 credit points, they're 18.75 credit points. So it's kind of acknowledging that you're going to be doing it 2 to 3 days a week. And there's sort of a lot of work goes into the placement. So it's got more credit points attached to it. And then there's a research unit that you do alongside it, which is a half unit, so a 6.25 credit point unit. And we've sort of done that so that we can split the research work up to try and dial down the amount of work that people are doing whilst they're on placement. And so you do one placement in semester A, roundabout semester A. The placements don't conform precisely to the semester structure, but they're pretty close. But roughly speaking, one placement in semester A, 375 hours with 150 hours of direct client activity, and then the same again in semester 2. And there are ways of introducing some flexibility with that structure. It's not as easy as you think, particularly because we're part-time, so things tend to only run once. We do sort of give people options around, placement A can be delayed and done in semester 2 sometimes, for example. There are ways of doing that, but all of the coursework units only run once a year, for example, and research A and research B only run once a year as well. So that does limit the it doesn't limit so much your flexibility, so much as it slows you down. If you get out of sequence, then what does typically happen is you end up you add a minimum of 6 months and more often 12 months to your course, which for a lot of people is no problem. If someone's gone away and had a baby, then quite happy to slow things down by 12 months usually. Next slide, I think, Marielle. I added this one back in just because we do sometimes get questions about the registrar program. So I think all of you know this, which is because that's why you want to do the course in the first place. Where this takes you to is that third box, really. You, as a 4+2 or a 5+1 pathway student, you're not able to get into the registrar program because you need a postgraduate 2-year to APAC level 4 equivalent postgraduate program of study, accredited program of study. So what this does is get you back onto that pathway, and then you are eligible to apply for the registrar program at the end of the course, which I would think everybody does. And that's now an 88-week program, and it's independent of the university's system. Really, it's a bit like the +1 program. The sort of +1 component, the 5+1, sort of overseen by APRA and independent of the higher education system. And then at the end of that, after a minimum of 88 weeks, with 80 weeks of supervision and 80 weeks of professional development, you are eligible for endorsement as a clinical psychologist. Next slide, I think, Marielle. All right, Eraj.
Yes, good afternoon. I hope that everyone can hear me. I can't see anyone, but it's good to be here. Believe me, if I could avoid today as well, I would have. I've avoided the dentist enough times that I couldn't avoid it today. So I'm pretty much stuck in the car and gonna go straight to it. So appreciate it. I'm sorry about the view. Thanks for the opportunity. It's great to be here. My name is Iraj, and I've held academic positions before. I'm a practitioner, a business owner, and a very busy person. I publish just for hobby, and this is my 6th university degree. The reason I say these things, apart from boosting my own ego, is to say that if I can do it, anyone can do it. I started the program back roughly 2 years ago. I can't believe it. When I put the video on, it was just an idea. And I said to myself, there is no way that I could do this because it definitely asks for a lot of commitment. Put the video online. I got in and I said, I'll do it for just 1 semester. And it was so seamless that I have no idea. It's just 2 years now. I'm about to finish. I'm towards halfway through my 2nd placement, and my coursework is done. So I'm towards the end of the research part of it. I've put it on this slide a few points there regarding the things that I experienced. Some of it is a double up on John's slides, so apologies for that. But it's online. That was the major benefit. I'm doing it at the comfort of my office or at home. That makes it an incredible experience. The content is seamless. It's very practical. It's very useful. And despite the fact that I've been in sort of practice for a long time now, doing this master's program is giving me the areas that I never looked at in depth before, on top of obviously it's going to get me the registration at some point as well as a clinical psychologist. The other thing I wanted to say about the course is it's it's very simply structured. It's very straightforward, with no corners. I didn't come across any challenges so far. Um, and the very fact that you can access the content also means that if you struggle with attending the lectures, which I highly recommend you do, because you get to ask questions live from John, it's a delight. And if you don't, you can access the content online at any time. And so that makes it very seamless, and I could integrate it into my busy life, and get it done up to this point. Hopefully, I get to finish it. I don't see any reason why not. In terms of the things that I learned, particularly that I didn't, or maybe I didn't know as much as before, in depth, or as a future clinical psychologist, was pretty much all the structured learnings around formulations, assessments, interventions. They were incredibly helpful to understand at that sort of high level and very practical level at the same time at Karen Miller. Staff are amazing, I can tell you that. They're incredible help. They're always available, particularly the placement team, and John obviously supervising everyone there. So it's been a very pleasant experience for me so far, and I appreciate that. The things that I have on the right side of the slide, though, are the stuff that I would suggest you consider. And I'm assuming at some point we're going to have a Q&A, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions there if I can. The time commitment is a real thing. So you got to really factor that in. And life goes up and down, and sometimes you might think, right, I'm gonna put it off. You can only put it off for some time. I probably am one of those who try to be as proactive as I can because I'm always time poor. So if I don't put it in ASAP, it's not going to happen for me. So managing your time is important. It's a commitment, but it's doable. So for me, it was nothing beyond weekends, and really the peak of it every semester is probably, for me, has been 6 or 7 weekends at the peak. So I'm not downplaying. There's work definitely involved, but because of the structure and the way that the course is delivered, it's very easy to integrate it into your life. And I don't know, yeah, for me that I work 5 days a week, 2 days a week, on and off, was an incredible. Again, enough yet not too much time for me. It was easily done. The thing that I can say about placement is that it can be unpaid. So you got to factor that in, 2 days or 3 days out of your uh, life and job for placement. Uh, yeah, it doesn't sit well, but particularly when you're working, as John said, you got mortgage to pay, etc. Um, but the good news is that you can do it in your own practice as well. I'm doing the second one at my own practice. It's incredible. It's just like going to work. Plus your obligations of the placement, and the supervisor obviously is all arranged, so no concerns there. The only other thing is that, like, I'm in Victoria. I could drop by and have a look at the uni, or even be in person and visit people. But and this is the thing that you should consider. Some people like online, some people like in person. For me, apart from the fact that I think it's more efficient, um, I wouldn't have been able to do it in person. Some people like it in person. I've heard from, friends, colleagues, and fellow students sometimes, I wish I could have a chat with someone in person. So if that's a thing for you, you got to really consider that. But I didn't feel like I need to see anyone. I will visit John some point in Gold Coast, but until then. Um, in terms of cost, is also something that you might want to consider. Obviously, there might be support I wasn't aware of, but if you're doing it as part of your practice, if you're a practice owner, you can definitely get some rebates back as part of the spend, depending on how you're structured. So they're the sort of high level things that I thought I should put in on a slide, as John requested. And over to you now, John. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you, Eraj.
Just as an additional question, if it's okay, Eraj, I was wondering, and maybe even John, as I'm sure some of your students probably have would be very interested to find out if you have any advice to students interested into coming into post-reg program after being out of the academic environment for a really long time, as you know, might be the case for a lot of our potential students. Maybe you
This
could give
is
an advice.
Eraj's sixth university, Mario. He hasn't been out of university since he was 18.
yeah. So what was the question? The question is,
If you have any advice to any potential students that are interested in studying post-reg
yeah.
after maybe being out of the academic environment for a long time, maybe that's not something that that
All
happened to
right.
you, but
That's a very good question. I didn't look at. It's a long time, I have to say, from my last of university degree, years in fact, when I did my master's in organizational psychology. But look, I didn't feel I needed quite a lot of prerequisite information, knowledge, and background to be successful in this. I think from the get-go, the content and particularly the first couple of units, they're an incredible sliding and opening sort of into the course. I don't have anything to say other than yeah, if I'm assuming everyone who's attending or be attending this course is a post-registration, they're already psychologists, they already have all the bases. I can say easily you have, in my opinion, everyone has about that 75% of the basis of the core things. That 25%, at least for me, was anything that had to do with the specific clinical area. So it shouldn't be a barrier, in my opinion, at all for psychologists.
It's certainly something we're aware of, Mario, and the first two units in semester one sort of take that into consideration, really. They are most people have got adult psychopathology experience, and that's one of the units that people find most straightforward to kind of slide back into postgraduate master's level education. And the other unit they do alongside it, there's sort of theory and practice of clinical psychology, is designed to be introductory in nature. I think there are other things that you might be thinking of that can be a challenge. You know, if you haven't been in higher education for 10 or 15 years, learning management systems, different software, everything's probably changed since then. Everybody everybody was writing their student submissions and their honours thesis using AP, different versions of APA. That's all changed. So it can be a challenge coming back in, but we do recognise that, and we're always sort of thinking about what additional resources can we add to support the people that are coming back into higher education after some time, because it isn't easy. We do recognise that.
lovely. Thank you so much. There might be other questions. Oh, sorry, John.
No, I was just going to say what I might do is if you just go down to if you go to the next slide, I'll just whiz through the next two slides,
Okay.
and then we can take some questions. Yeah, so sorry, if you go back up a couple of slides to the tuition fees. So people, as Eraj said, you know, these costs rack up for courses like this. So some people self-fund, some people sort of do it through their business, and some people use fee help in order to pay for their fees. But so it's something that you need to think about, and there's more information about that on the website. So do have a think about the financial aspect of it. It would be hard for me to say categorically. You know, Eraj talked about unpaid placements. I don't actually have the data on how many students do how many unpaid placements. A lot of students manage to do 2 paid placements. You're all registered psychologists. It's certainly possible. Some don't. Some have a particular desire to do a particular placement in a particular place and end up effectively, you know, doing it unpaid. some students are able to get paid for their whole placements. It's something we are unable to influence, something we can talk to you about, but we don't have direct influence with placement providers about it. I
will also say that, like John said, all of the fees have been updated on the website. If you need if you have any other questions about fee helps and study loan, you could certainly reach out to our applications team. And while we do acknowledge that we don't have CSP for this program, we do try to keep the fees at a reasonable price. Like we said earlier in the earlier slides, we are a not-for-profit, so we try to make sure that the courses are reasonably placed in terms of what the students are hoping to be able to afford. And we do offer flexible payment plans and fee help for students needing support. So there are many options for fees when you're considering this course, but if in doubt, you can reach out to our student services team and admissions team for any questions on fees.
Thanks, Marielle. If you go to the next slide, where we were talking about student support really, when we were talking about coming back into higher education. That's certainly something we're aware of. We have a very good academic support area that is able to help you get back into study. We have a full-time academic support coordinator who provides a lot of resources, a lot of online resources, and you can make individual meetings with to help with individual assignments, as well as get general academic help. And we also have a full-time learning equity officer whose job really is to help with help students who have chronic health problems, ongoing whether it's physical health, psychological health, on anything that's happening for you that affects your ability to engage with the material. She's there to be able to help with that, help develop learning access plans for people, get you more time with assessments, get you different kinds of assessments if needed, get you different support from unit coordinators and lecturers. All right, we might wrap it up there, go to the last slide, and then I can take any questions as well. I think, Eraj, you've got to go, haven't you? Yeah, so we'll just take this opportunity to thank Eraj for his insights as a student. And I'll
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll do my best to answer student questions, Eraj, and if I have to take anything on notice, then I'll send you an email.
Thanks so much, Kyle.
Eraj.
Thank you, Eraj.
Okay, happy to take questions.
So everyone, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop it into the Q&A chat, and we'll cycle through them as much as we can. But there are some questions that were sent through the registrations prior to the session. So if you don't mind, I'll ask a few of them, John. So also in the topic of, support and flexibility and accommodation that we can provide, how much of that flexibility can be made for students' preferences when it comes to placements, i.e. if they have specific working locations or if they wanted to work in specific fields? Can you talk a little bit more about how we can cater to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the story starts with your own professional network. So if you have an idea for a thing that you want to do and you've got a contact there, then we can help. So we can talk to you about how that might become a placement. We have a lot of documentation around how you go about proposing a placement. We'll take you through it in a very structured way. And really, there's no limit to the diversity there. And in fact, the more diversity between your placements, the better. Usually the problem we have is not somebody picking something pretty different. It's people trying to do two placements that are too similar. If you want to go and do something that is very unique, work in defence, work in a very specific area of public health, very specific community work, there are no barriers to that, as long as it is a clinical psychology placement. Every now and again, we will have difficulties approving a placement because it's just not clinical psychology enough. This is a level 4 specialised clinical psychology training, and the placement work has got to be overtly, demonstrably clinical psychology work. as long as it's that, then we're happy, really. People do, most people do face-to-face stuff. Some telehealth stuff happens. We've got a student working for a Tasmanian service from Melbourne at the moment, for example. So there is some telehealth that happens. We've got a lot of students, more and more students in WA, where there are some quite different opportunities around fly in, fly out work. So there's really no rules around what you can't do, as long as it's clinical psychology and as long as it's different to what you've been doing in your job in some way, and as long as you don't try and do the same thing twice.
Thanks so much. We've got a few questions that are coming in. Some of them we try to answer directly, but we can answer this one live. Rach has asked, she thanks us that it's been very informative, and she's asked, what does your ideal candidate look like for the program?
Course coordinators might have a slightly different ideal. What we are looking for, it's a really good question. What we're looking for are, it's not easy doing postgraduate study, not so much because of the intellectual challenge. I think, we're all on, everybody's on a spectrum of that. Some people find the intellectual aspect easy, some people find it hard, some people find some aspects easy, some aspects hard. So it's not really that we're looking for people that are super academic. If you are a registered psychologist and you've got a reasonable academic background, you will get through the program and we will help you get through the program. Where things start to get difficult is where people have difficulty taking on feedback, difficulty adjusting their practice in relation to feedback, difficulty sometimes with, there can be some, I guess, mixed motivations around doing the course. So the ideal candidate is somebody that wants to learn a postgraduate program more about clinical psychology and being a clinical psychologist because that's what they want, not because the Medicare rebate is higher, for example, not because they want the title. That's when people run into difficulties. It's when there's a sort of intrinsic desire to work as a clinical psychologist that I think people get the most out of the program. I think the sort of, the bombardment in feedback is hard. It's hard for everybody. It's hard for students. It's hard for staff. Staff get tons of feedback from you. We all get a lot of frigging feedback. And that gets painful after a while. So I think another thing about being an ideal postgraduate student is sort of willingness to seek and accept feedback and to do things differently, really. And the rest, I think, will fall into place if you've got that motivation. I'm not even sure it's a skill. I think it's a motivation.
Just conscious of time, so I'll ask one more question. And I will say, if there, to the attendees, if you have any other question, or if something is, if any of your questions weren't answered in this session, we do offer one-on-one consultations that are completely free, that you can book. After this information session next week, you will receive a link to the recording and a link to book a consultation with our student services. So please do take full advantage of that and book in, and you could talk directly to our student services team. So John, just as a last question before we wrap up, maybe you could tell us one thing that you wish all new post-reg students knew, or wish that they did know before commencing the program.
I don't think it's what I wish they know, what I would like you to remember, because most of this information gets said at some point, but some critical things do get forgotten. I think the key thing is probably, Iraj talked a bit about not underestimating the placement part. Please don't forget that placements are self-sourced. Please don't forget that we're 100% online. Please don't forget that, we provide your supervision. You find the placement, but there are sort of the structure around what you can and can't do. Yes, you can do a placement in your workplace, but you can't do both of your placements in your workplace. There are, every now and again, there's a caveat to that. For example, you know, if you work for a health service and you do one placement in one area and then a completely different placement in a completely different building, in a completely different place, with completely different clients and completely different colleagues, with completely different frameworks, then sometimes that happens. But for most people, most of the time, you're doing two different placements in two separate services that need to be distinct from one another, that both offer new learning opportunities. I think that's one of the things that it's really important to remember. It's a stress. Placement one in semester one of your second year is probably sort of peak workload, peak training. It's the first placement. You're also doing it alongside the research unit. Is when it gets most stressful. I think once you've done your first placement, then there's light at the end of the tunnel. And also, you know how to do placements, you know how to do the research stuff, and you're on the downhill run. So it is useful for people to remember that the coursework, you put the time, as long as you leave some time aside for it, you'll get through it. Placements, I think, are the bit that people find challenging. It's not easy, the concept of going back into a placement and being a student, and you will be treated as a student. You're there to learn, and you know you are a registered psychologist, so you are also treated as a professional colleague, but you are also treated as a student, and that can be tough. It's a tough kind of duality to live with and experience, and we know it's tough, but it is part and parcel of postgraduate training.
And I suppose as an addition to that as well, in terms of the things that we want our attendees to remember, is that even though we will be closing on the 30th of November, we are rolling out offers, like John said earlier. So it is really in your best interest to apply as soon as you can. And again, if you have any questions or any doubts about the requirements or the fees or how to apply, please do take full advantage of the one-on-one consultations. All right. So thank you so much, John, for this very informative session. And thank you, everybody, for attending. Please look forward to the recording of the email of this session in your emails next week.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Thanks, Marielle. Bye-bye.